Okay, I think we're all set up. Welcome everybody. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you are joining us virtually so that I know you can hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so welcome to the first Faculty Research Symposium of the semester. We expect that people will be coming in and try not to walk in front of anybody here. We expect that people will probably be coming in as we start, coming in online. And so we are also recording this. If anybody would like to be able to follow up later, they're certainly welcome to do that as well. So you guys know that I am Emily Lund. I'm the Associate Dean for Research right now. And I'm part of or chair of the research committee. And on the research committee, we are charged with moving forward research in Harris College. There's at least one representative from every unit on the research committee. And we help think about events like this and about how we can move things forward relative to the productivity of our faculty at Harris College. So to that end, we decided to use the first Faculty Research Symposium this year to remind you of some of the events and some of the resources that we have available in Harris College. And then really what we want to do is start going into conversation about research mentoring. So as you know, I hope you know, research mentoring is part of the Harris College strategic plan. And there have been calls for a few years to develop some mentoring resources and programs within the college for us to make sure that everybody is moving in the direction that they want to move. This is something that the research committee has been in deep discussion about over the last year. And so we want to talk to you a little bit today about how we're conceptualizing mentoring, how it has affected us, and what we plan to do to move us forward relative to mentoring that you might seek out in Harris College. So today I have Kathy Baker from nursing and T. Tyler from social work, who are members of the research committee, who will also help me present on some of the decisions we've made, the events that are coming up, and their own trajectories of research, and then thinking about what Harris College has to offer. And then hopefully we'll get into some discussion about mentoring too at the end. I don't know how that's going to work online as well, but we'll do what we can. I'm sincerely hoping I can make this advance. Okay, so I want to spend just a few minutes here at the start of our meeting talking about some of the student research opportunities that we have in Harris College. Because I think sometimes if you don't spend a lot of time clicking multiple links in the Harris College website, it's easy to forget that we have some resources that are really helpful to our students as they embark on research. So two of those resources that you might be familiar with are the student conference grants, so named because of what has happened to travel in the last year, and the student research grants. So student conference grants are grants designed for us to help support Harris College students who want to attend a professional or research conference with a very specific purpose in mind. So that might be to present research, it might be to get some mentoring, it might be, there could be any number of reasons. And we have funding available for students to apply for to attend those conferences. Those conferences might involve travel, and so the student conference monies can support travel, but also they might involve registration for something like an online conference. And so we can support that too. We can support attendance at an online conference by helping students to find money to pay the registration fee. The student research grant is designed to help students purchase the supplies that they might need to be able to complete a research project. Now, something that's going to be a little bit different this year than perhaps in past years is that these grants don't have rolling applications, but rather they have deadlines. And so if you know you're going to travel in a certain time period, you will apply for the grant ahead of time, even if you potentially don't have a poster or a presentation accepted yet. You are still eligible to go ahead and apply to attend that conference and to provide proof of submission, maybe rather than proof of acceptance. Similarly, for those research grants, they will go through a review process that's embedded in the expertise we have in the research committee. And so we have a deadline for those as well. I wanted you to note in particular, we have an upcoming fall deadline of October 1st for funding that maybe you'd like to start using this fall. So if you'd like to start using funding for a student research project in the fall, please go on and look at our student research grant applications so that you can meet that deadline. Some events that we have coming up, as we do most years, and these will be in the spring. And no, I don't know exactly what form they will take given the COVID situation. But we will have either virtual or in person or hybrid 3-minute thesis. There will be an informational meeting on October 20th that will be advertised in coming weeks. We have the Bowler presentations, of course, for Harris College, for those students who are in the Honors College. And we will have the Student Research Symposium. So these are all opportunities in the spring for students to present their research, in different ways, and we hope everybody will get involved in those. And then finally, relative to the PhD program, there are some new initiatives that I would like the college to know about. And these kind of span that line between student research opportunities and faculty opportunities to get involved with each other. So it's a two-way street. So one of the things I wanted to tell you about is upcoming in October, I'm planning a demystifying the PhD program event, not so much for the students, but for faculty. If you're wondering what's going on with our PhD program, who's in it, how does it work, what are the courses, what are some opportunities, this particular presentation is for you. You can come in and get your questions answered. I also want to make folks aware that within the PhD program, we piloted this last year, but it's going to be ongoing this year, what I'm calling the Academic Life series. So we would like to invite faculty to come present in panels or small groups to the PhD students on the hidden curriculum of academia. So there are things about operating in an academic institution that are unlike operating in any other job. And we want to spend time talking with our students about some of those things. So for example, last year, we did a mini series on navigating the academic job market. It's not a lot of fields where you go spend 2 days doing an in-person interview and eating lots of meals with your interviewers. And so we talked about what is that like? How would you prepare for that? What do you want to think about when you go prepare for an academic interview or a job talk? And so I've asked the doc students to send me some things that they'd like to hear about, but I would also like to invite the faculty. If you have an idea of something, say, that you didn't know about academia before you entered, that you'd like to have a conversation with the PhD students about, we can get that set up. So we'll have multiple opportunities to maybe have lunch with the PhD students, talk about what you wish you had known, what you hadn't known, and just kind of get to know them a little better while sharing some of this hidden curriculum stuff. Some faculty research things I wanted to make you aware of. We have some events this year, and we'll go into this a little more as we talk about mentoring, that I want you to put on your radar, and if you want to grow your research, that you should continue to participate in. So one of those is obviously happening today. This is the Faculty Research Symposium. And starting this year, really with the next session, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of having one faculty member present at each research symposium, we're going to have a topic and a panel. So if you're invited to be on a panel, you will present a little bit about what your work has been relative to that topic, and then we'll facilitate some discussion around that topic. So for example, the next Faculty Research Symposium is in October, and I think I have the date up here in a couple slides. And we're going to be talking about single case design. So across the college, we're going to have panelists who have used single case design in their research, and they're going to talk about how they've done that. And then there'll be some open opportunity for discussion then for anybody from the audience who wants to ask questions about how they might use that research design or how they might collaborate with somebody who's using that research design. You might recall that I sent out an application or suggestion form for presenters for these topics at the end of last semester. I realize a lot has happened since then. And so before we send out invitations to presenters beyond that single case design panel, I wanted to open applications back up so that if you'd like to present on one of the upcoming topics, so we have scholarship of teaching and learning, working with community partners, recruiting vulnerable populations, engaging in qualitative research. I think those are our other topics. Please submit an application to be a panelist if you're doing some work in one of those areas. So that's our Faculty Research Symposium. And then of course, we also have the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Zhang, our statistician in Harris College. And she and I have been coordinating to try to make the Lunch and Learn go with whatever the topic is for the Faculty Research Symposium. So her upcoming Lunch and Learn will have to do with some of the how-tos of single subject design. And so it's just an opportunity to grow your skills, to meet with people who are thinking about some of the things you're thinking about, and hopefully foster some collaboration. Some supports that I want to remind you about in Harris College, and then we can move to the fun stuff and talk about mentoring. We have Wi-Fi hotspots, as we have for several years. And you can email Irma in the dean's office to look into checking out one of those hotspots. The procedures for doing so are online on the Harris College research website. That can support your work if you have to work, for example, from a research site that doesn't have good internet access, when you potentially need internet access for that data collection. We also have on the research website an application for external review, money to pay an external reviewer. If you would like an external reviewer on one of your manuscripts that you're writing, or an external grant submission. So your grant or your manuscript needs to be at a fairly developed point before we would pay an external reviewer to help give you feedback in anticipation of either publication or submission of that external grant. But we do have resources in this mechanism to support you're getting feedback before the submission process. And finally, of course, we have opportunities for statistical consultation. If you need statistical consultation, I recommend that you recognize that early in the project and that you go to our website to fill out that consultation request form. So we're not just going to call Dr. Zhang and say, hey, I've got some data, can we talk about it right now? But rather fill out the consultation form and we can figure out how best to help you out on what you're doing. A couple of other things I wanted to point out to you that are not at the Harris College level, but that are at the university level. If you didn't already know this, TCU has an institutional membership with the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, And with your membership, you can use your sign-on information. You have access to some resources and webinars, some of which we're going to reference today. These webinars, of course, give you content information about operating as a faculty member, but I find them really helpful in that they lead you through activities. So like they have a goal setting webinar that I like to do at least once a year to get myself back on track. And so there are a lot of really good topics. I highly recommend that you take advantage of this resource. And then also, just so that you're aware, I'm really excited about this. The IRB at TCU and Research Compliance have been working on getting a system in place that does not involve sending Word documents back and forth to the IRB. So our IRB has been working on putting a submission system in place that can give you notifications about when your studies expire, about when your city training expires, allows you to log in and see where you are in the process. So I just pulled this announcement off of the compliance webpage, but get excited about this. They're hoping for a full launch in January of this year, but you might get tapped ahead of time to participate in some pilot testing of this system. If you get invited, I highly recommend that you do so. Also, just of note, as you submit IRBs and we ramp human subjects research back up after this last year, make sure that you're going to that forms and procedures webpage from the IRB. They have been adding lots of new great things to help you determine, do I need IRB review or do I not? They've got some great checklists for thinking about what to include in your IRB to get it through the committee the first time. There's just a lot of really great resources, and they've done a lot of updating over the summer. So I highly recommend that you check out that webpage. Okay, and finally, to launch us into talking about mentorship and hopefully not eat up all of the presentation time, I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the goals of the Harris College Research Committee for this next year. So one of the things that we're in discussions about right now is trying to put together a collaboration and expertise database. So you may have been asked in the last year by your research committee representative to send in or confirm your areas of expertise. We're envisioning working towards a searchable system where if you wanted to know if somebody's used this particular thing or has expertise in that, where you might be able to search for it and figure out who you might talk to build a network of collaborators. So that's something that we hope is upcoming. And then relative to some of our mentorship opportunities, many of you participated in the writing challenge last spring when we piloted it and got feedback to see kind of how it would work. We plan to launch the writing challenge, again, a smaller version in the fall, and the full 3-month challenge in the spring. For those of you who maybe didn't participate, this is a challenge that's open to anybody in Harris College, including our PhD students. So faculty, professional practice, or tenure track faculty, and our PhD students to participate in a challenge that encourages you to write every day. You're put into small groups. You can choose to meet in those small groups or not. And you earn points based on the writing that you log. So basically, we've set up a system where you have incentives to write daily from multiple directions. One of the incentives might be just because it's a challenge and you like competition. So we capture how much writing each group has done, and we announce which group is winning at the end of each month. We also have incentives, like you can kind of earn prizes for hitting certain benchmarks in the amount that you write. And then also there's some peer pressure, right? If you're accountable to a small group, you don't want to be the one who comes back to the group and says, yeah, I didn't do any writing this week after all, even though I set that goal to write. And so I highly encourage everyone at whatever career stage you're at, if you want to be involved in research writing, even if you're really experienced or not so experienced, to consider jumping on board with the competition. The challenge, the writing challenge, just so that we have some opportunities to create some small groups that are really interdisciplinary and provide people with multiple levels of expertise. In the spring for our writing challenge, we also want you to be aware that we're planning early stages, a kickoff event where we'll talk about some things relative to publishing, like predatory publishing and how to select journals and how to be strategic in your publishing. So all of that coming up. But as I had said before, one of the goals and something that the research committee has been in conversation about over the last year is mentorship. And so what I've got up here is from the NCFDD, I always mess that up, the mentorship map that they create. So if you'd like a mentorship map and you're in person, you're welcome to take one. You can also download it from the website. But this map, I think, is reflective of how on the research committee, as we've explored the data, the research that's out there on academic mentorship, this reflects some of our thinking. So I think when we talk about mentorship programming, or we talk about a mentor, a lot of us have the guru model in our head, right? That there's going to be like this one person who is my assigned mentor and helps me do all the things. Now, in reality, that's not actually a very viable model for a college, and it puts a lot of pressure on that one person to be all the things to somebody who wants to develop a new skill. So instead, we started thinking about and approaching mentorship matches from a network framework instead of the individual mentor framework. And if you acknowledge a network of mentors rather than an individual mentor, you can recognize that there are many predictable areas where we need support as we develop as academics, and that we could pursue mentorship from lots of different people to develop a mentoring network rather than to try to find that one person that we get matched up with. And in fact, that seeking mentorship can be proactive rather than reactive. I think we've all probably had that experience, right? Where sometimes you might get assigned a mentor and it actually wasn't a very good match. And so in this proactive model, if we can go out and find who we need for what we need, we don't end up in a situation where other people are trying to guess at what would work for us. So this model, the NCFDD mentoring map, lists a couple of areas where they foresee that academics might need support. And remember, this is guiding some of our planning for a Harris College mentorship type program. We recognize that faculty or PhD students, academics in general, probably need some mentoring in the area of professional development. They potentially need others who can guide them in learning new methodologies or approaching questions in new ways. They need, of course, hopefully not as much at work as like just in their life in general, emotional support. We recognize that everybody's a human and needs support from some arena. You need role models, right? People who maybe have what you want or in the position that you want to be in later, who you hopefully can look to and ask questions and help you think about your forward trajectory. We need intellectual community, which is hopefully what we're building here today, where we can talk about new ideas and at varying stages. So that's our 0 to 25, 25 to 50. We all recognize that any idea that you have moves from a place where it's not very defined to very defined, right? And hopefully you have intellectual community that you can talk to at any stage, and those might be different people to help you develop those ideas. We need a safe space, of course, where we can vent Hopefully that might be inclusive of peers. Accountability. So this is things like in the writing challenge, right? We all know that in academia, there's a lot of external accountability for things like teaching, because if I don't prep for my class, the class is still going to meet and I have to have my stuff ready, but not as much for things like writing. Whether I choose to write today or tomorrow doesn't always have an immediate impact on what people think of me. We need mentors for access to opportunities, and along with that, sponsorship. So you need people to help you see like what grants are out there, or what conferences might you be able to go to. And then also sponsorship, you want people around you to be aware of what you're doing. So if an opportunity comes up, somebody might be able to say, oh gosh, like, you know, Dr. Tyler might be able to help you with that. I see that opportunity for presentation. I'm going to recommend him. So we need mentorship in terms of everybody knowing what's going on. And then substantive feedback. We need opportunities to have colleagues who can give you feedback on your work and help you move it forward. And so to that end, the research committee has started thinking about how we can create opportunities for faculty to fill in these gaps. Like what programs might you use for professional development or to develop intellectual community? With the idea, hopefully, that we are working towards a model where at the beginning of the year, you might be able to sit down with this map. And for those of you here who have it in front of you, even start filling it in and recognizing like, where do you have space to ask for more mentorship? And then hopefully, if you've identified areas of need that you have, then you can come to some of these events. We'll have venues for you to start exploring who's out there in Harris College and how can we develop some of these networks so that we have support for everyone. So with that being said, I'm going to invite Kathy to talk with us a little bit about her experience with mentorship. We had the thought that maybe we have other colleagues share what their experience has been with mentorship and mentoring, and we can start some conversations about what's needed and kind of what some of our thoughts are on how we develop mentorship within the college. So please take it away.
Sure. So I loved the concept map I did that Emily brought to our group. And so I started playing a little bit with just sort of revisiting. I think probably I'm the most senior in terms of age person in the room. So I started revisiting sort of how those mentorship relationships had panned out for me and sort of how they clustered. And actually in doing this process, I was amazed to look at the richness of the mentorship opportunities that I've had in my career. Many of them were formalized, some of them were not formalized, and yet when I reflect, I recognize how much mentorship I garnered from them. So even initially just thinking about pursuing my PhD, I'm a nurse, and I was very engaged in practice and really loved practice and being a leader in practice. But I was in the gastroenterology endoscopy specialty area. I was managing that department at Parkland Health and Hospital System in Dallas. And so in that role, because it's a teaching hospital, I worked very closely with the faculty from the med school, clinicians from across that entire entity. And people started noticing that I just loved clinical scholarship. So I was writing manuscripts and doing things that were sort of above and beyond my job description. And so they noticed that, and they started pushing me and mentoring me towards thinking about pursuing a PhD. And they did that for several years before it finally clicked. And I realized that I needed to listen to that and explore that. And so, in fact, I did indeed end up pursuing a PhD when that had never been on my radar in terms of my future, and not seeing that that was perhaps where I needed to be. So I think part of what mentorship involves too is recognizing the people who see something in you that you don't see in yourself. and that they persistently push you to listen to their advice and, to steer you in those directions where they see that you have a contribution to be made. So then I thought about going into academia. Again, I came from a practice world that had never been on my radar. So I really hadn't paid attention to that when I was in an academic setting as a student. But as a PhD student, I began to really look at that. My PhD program, unlike our PhD program here, did not prepare me for academia. It was really preparing me to be a scientist in nursing. And so I sort of picked up those kinds of things along the way, just looking at people who I wanted to emulate, trying to ask questions, listening to the faculty when they would talk about some of the behind the scenes kind of things that were going on and happening. And so I was very fortunate to have some colleagues that I was teaching alongside that really were the ones that mentored me in teaching. And so they passed along tips, they explained to me how they managed classes. There were several that I co-taught with that I really enjoyed. And so then I would pick their brain, ask them to give me feedback in terms of how I organized the class, all of those kinds of things that now I think we're much more cognizant of, but they really truly helped me. These colleagues were all outside of TCU, by the way. My career until about 14 years ago happened outside of TCU. And those were really sort of my developmental years. So a lot of my mentors were outside of TCU just by virtue of where I've sort of lived my career before getting here. The research piece, certainly as a scientist and as a novice scientist, I needed a lot of mentorship there. My doctorate is from UT Austin, and it is a top tier research university. The School of Nursing there is one of the top in the country. So I had great preparation as a student in terms of the science and how that worked. But once you leave that environment, right, then suddenly you're out there by yourself and you're expected to move towards tenure, to be successful at that. And that was really quite overwhelming. So trying to move into academia at the same time as I'm trying to pursue tenure was very, very difficult. So I had mentors and colleagues that were very influential in helping me in terms of methodologies. One of those was my dissertation chair, and I'm amazed that I've continued to stay in contact with all of these mentors in my life, even those that are retired now, and I'm very grateful for that. But Dr. Alexa Steibergen, who's now the dean at UT Nursing, she was not when she was my dissertation chair. She really worked a lot with me to understand methodologies. I hate to share this with you, but she made me work for 3 years to get my dissertation proposal to where she was happy with it, because I had always been taught, just keep it simple. So keep it simple. It does not need to be complex. And I kept doing that. The faculty all around me were telling me that. That was not what she wanted. She wanted me to do something more complex so that I would have that learning experience of really looking at that. But she wouldn't articulate that. She wanted me to figure that out for myself. So after 3 years of wallowing, I finally caught it. I finally understood what she wanted. And so I had a really very complex dissertation, but I learned so much from it because she made me do that, pain and all. Other methodology, we are very fortunate that we have been involved with the Joint Agrees Institute. So I've had some mentors through that opportunity. Dr. Ray has been involved with that too, to have some phenomenal methodologists that have really helped me to understand methodology, both in implementing things and critiquing it. I am a mixed methods researcher, but I really love the qualitative and how it informs the quantitative. And so I've had some great researchers there that have sort of taken me under their wing and helped me and mentored me in that way. Even on implementation and dissemination, I needed mentorship on those things. So you're always hitting sort of brick walls and things, particularly early in your career. So it was really very helpful to have colleagues that could say, okay, sit down. Here's what I see from the outside looking in. Have you thought about managing this way? Have you thought about using this way to get around these barriers? So that was very, very helpful. Dissemination, I happen to be a NURS editor. So I was fortunate to have mentoring from some phenomenal editors in nursing, both across the country and around the world. That helped me with my writing as well. Not only learning how to be an editor, but even in serving as peer reviewers. And again, being mentored by other peer reviewers that I respected, that I knew they knew what they were doing, that they coached me and gave me feedback, would look at what I had done and then give me some pointers of things that maybe I had missed when I was peer reviewing that manuscript. And so that was very, very helpful. And then just the things that you learn along the way about how to pick journals and how to recognize how to write to that audience, and to customize those things. And so again, there were certain people that I sought out because I saw how successful they were, and they really took the time to help me and to let me talk along with them every time I got ready to submit something. Here's where I'm thinking I'm going to submit, and then they would point out the pros and cons of that and help me, never telling me what to do, but offering those opportunities to learn from what they already have sort of mastered and the life that they've lived and the mistakes that they've made along the way. Grant writing was just another one of those that I really didn't get a lot of experience with that, believe it or not, in my PhD program. And so that has been very helpful to have different folks. I would say TCU probably has been the location where I've gotten the most in terms of mentorship and support from others. And then I don't want to leave out for us as nursing and health sciences, those aspects of what we call what we do every day as practice. And so I think about that even though not all of us refer to our practice, when we're living out what we do in terms of our roles in our everyday life, that is everyone's practice, so to speak. So again, I was very fortunate to have some formal administrators and leaders in the practice setting as well that really helped me to understand. So when I came to TCU, I went very quickly into an administrative role in nursing, which again had not been on my radar to do that. And so Dean Paulette Burns really mentored me very, very heavily to help me to understand TCU's way of doing things, which was very different from UT Arlington, which is where I had taught for 17 years before I came here to TCU. Everything is different. The way we look at tenure and promotion, all of the ways that we approach even teaching, the way we approach shared governance, there was so much that was so different. So from that leadership perspective and being able to support faculty that I now had some allegiance and responsibility to, she really mentored me in that way. Professionally, I can't begin to tell you just the people that from around the country and even through some of my international associations have really invested in me, again, mentored me, directed me. And all of those things, I think, in terms of the mentorship and the many people, I have 2 pages of the people that I really can say mentored me in all of these different areas. It really led to some successes in my career. And as I said, I'm sort of approaching the end of my career, but they have really helped me to have great success. And so again, I've been very fortunate to achieve promotion and tenure, and then was promoted just this last year to professor here at TCU. I also have been elected as a member of our Academy for Clinical Nurse Specialists, which is my advanced practice role in nursing. And then I'm very fortunate to be a member of our American Academy of Nursing. And that was something that I never aspired for. But there are 5 of us now here at TCU. Less than 1% of the 3+ million nurses in the country have that distinction. None of that was ever, in my view, of anything I could ever achieve, ever dream of. But it's all the people that are represented here that helped and pushed me to see that. Even those who sponsored me into those academies, they came to me to say, you need to do this, you're ready, and we will be your sponsors and we will help you to demonstrate what you've accomplished. So the final thing I think about is that responsibility of paying it forward. So no matter what this mentorship model looks like, in each of your careers, it's always important to take what you've learned from those others and the time that they've invested in you and pass that on to others, colleagues, perhaps your students in the future, whoever that may be, so that we're continuing not just to take in, but we're also giving back for the mentorship that we've been blessed with along the way. So that's just a little bit of my story. T, you want to share?
Sure, yeah. We'll go to the next slide. That's a.
I just press the
yeah,
forward button.
I will do the next. I know. Forgive me. I didn't know. So I was gonna say, yeah, it's an honor to follow after Kathy. I feel like I have been a benefactor of Pay It Forward, and it's kind of neat to hear that backstory and explore that. And I want to actually talk about some of the work we've done together as part of this. I am much earlier in my career. I'm an assistant professor here, so I've got a couple stories that have informed my approach thus far. Many different ways to approach mentorship. These are the ones that have worked for me the most, two in particular. The first is mentorship approach one. I think I just call it the King Arthur approach, which is really, and anyone's seen the movie, just the metaphor, my approach is not reflective of everything that happens in that movie, but in case I need to preface. But the main point is, I like this idea that when you need a team or you need certain people, there's always this proactive approach of how do you get out to these people to kind of build that infrastructure to even support your work and what you're doing. And I'll share two stories about this. The first is, well, first of all, as a preface, I will say, thanks, all the work that I've done that's like conceptual or focused on literature reviews, I feel like all the people, like when I go to the textbooks, have been in the nursing profession. So thank you as a discipline. This is Kay Avant. This is a picture of her. I remember what happened is very early, I think this was about 2017, I became very interested in concept analysis and working conceptually as it relates to social work practice. And I've spoke to a couple colleagues and people referred me to this book. Kay is one of the co-authors of this book. And some of these stories are kind of funny too, because I remember I emailed her and we set up an appointment to talk. And I said, yeah, I'd really like to chat with you if you have time. And first of all, she lives in San Antonio. She says, are you available tomorrow at noon to meet in person? I was like, whoa, yeah, I am, but this isn't that. But she's like, I'm already going to see a friend in Fort Worth, so I'm already en route. But I remember she came just to the social work suite here and we sat down for 2 hours and just really got into it. And it was so meaningful for her to even take that time, as a side trip as she was already coming up here. But I remember any work that I did related to doing simulations, especially, and how to make sure our students are hitting key concepts within the health science lab up here. A lot of that is still informed by that conversation I had with her for 2 hours. Amazing mentorship moment for me. So in the process of this, after I did, later on, I made a decision that I really wanted to get as much depth as possible I could on my primary research topic, which is parent and LGBTQ child relationships. And after just reflecting on my own, I made the decision that I wanted to really focus on literature review studies. I spoke to 3, 4, 5 people, and every time I spoke to someone, they referred me to Kathy as the primary person to talk to. I emailed Kathy, and I remember our first meetings because not only did we talk about, you even helped with conversations to guide me toward qualitative MetaSummary, which I'll talk in a second. But I remember how, and this is where I think it really connects back to that pay it forward thing, because I remember how invested you were in me taking these next steps, and that was that became a very energizing, motivating process for me. So thank you, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But one of the books Kathy and I spoke about early on is a book focused on a literature review method called Qualitative MetaSummary. And one of the things that to me is so meaningful about the mentorship process is the opportunities you have for growth and learning. Because there's sometimes where you might say, I want to do this methodology but I don't know how to do it. Who can mentor me in that way? But this was a moment where I think when Kathy and I were speaking, I said, here's what I want to do, but I don't know what the method would be, right? Because at that time, I felt most of the literature review methodology seemed to prioritize more quantitative methods. And once I read this book and found, I was like, that's such a snap fit for all I'm trying to do. It answers so many of my questions. And in this process, this is Julie Barossa, and I met with her, and I just remember it was so meaningful because I actually emailed her just to say thank you, because once I found that, it saved me so much time of trying to use another method to arbitrarily fit it to what I want to do, to have something that was already in there. And I just remember in our first correspondence, she said, if you have a manuscript and you want to send it, please do. And I said, I assume you're very busy. And she said, just send it. And for the next like 2 months, we would meet or chat. And I can't tell you how meaningful it is, the difference between reading a book and getting to speak with the author about the book. It was just a very meaningful moment for me, and I have such a deep sense of gratitude for that mentorship opportunity that I didn't anticipate coming. So that's another quick story. That's approach number one, King Arthur approach. I made that up. That's not sophisticated, or don't cite it if it works for you to remember it. For whatever reason, both of these come from Hollywood movies. So the next one is Field of Dreams. Invite mentors to you, and I think this one's a simple one. Only one example. What was interesting is. When Kathy and I were speaking in one of our early conversations, I kind of talked about how it took 3 or 4 or 5 people before we had that conversation. And we thought, if there are other people, not only in Harris College, but university-wide, who have an interest or potentially might in qualitative research methodology, what's a way that we could create much more of an umbrella, opportunity where people could find us and that kind of thing. So I think the second one is there's opportunities where you go find people individually. But there's other times when if you have kind of a niche interest, how do you create a hub that people can come find you and gravitate towards you? And so what we've done is we've created the Qualitative Collaborative. And really what this is we do meet once per semester, kind of informally to kind of talk, and that's always been a meaningful experience. But the primary function of it is a listserv, and this is the address. It's just QC for Qualitative Collaborative. And we even made it with doctoral students in mind. Everyone that's on this listserv is on board that if you wanted to email out a question, we're all looking forward to it. Not only does it inform us, help us learn new things, right? When even if PhD students are deciding to qualitative or mixed methods, but I find you just kind of learn new things, right? Someone says something, and it could be something as simple, who does this? And it's a one email response. Someone goes, I know someone who does it. We're good. Or it could be something like, I'm kind of exploring this. And we go, yeah, tell us more. And all of a sudden, there's this educational opportunity. So that's been a meaningful endeavor as well. But those are my 2 stories. So I'm going to turn the time back over to Emily.
I'm going to ask you guys to come sit up here too.
Okay.
I'm going to try to facilitate and hold some conversation. And so I noticed we had some things in the chat too that I've been ignoring. Oh, good. We also have a shared summary of research interests in TCU nursing. Okay. So what I wanted to do now, kind of with the time that we have left, is just start some conversation about either questions that you have about mentoring, or thoughts that you have, or thoughts about maybe what's needed in Harris College and what we need in reference to research mentorship. So yeah, does anybody have a question or a thought or a comment that you'd like to get us started? You all online, I'll try to monitor chat too. I'm not great at it, but I'll do what I can.
Does any of this resonate with what your experiences have been so far in your careers, or does anyone have something that's like sort of different in terms of your mentored experiences? This is the part where y'all talk.
Everyone wants to speak at once.
Has anybody ever cold emailed like a possible mentor before, or have a good story about that? Yeah, well, I know you were sharing some of your
I
stories.
got a bunch. Yeah.
What is your success rate on that? So like you were able to like collaborate or get some mentorship from an author from a book. Like how many times have you done that? Like And you've gotten positive responses.
I do it a lot. Like
Okay.
I connect with a lot of authors that I read books with. It's just fantastic. I mean, I found my favorite children's book of all time, and I emailed the author just to hear the backstory, and that was fantastic. I really like I really like group practice and group therapy as a topic within social work that we work on. But the guru, I think he's about 87 years old now and has written prolific books, and his name's Irvin Yalom. And I emailed the center to ask some questions of it, and I got an email directly back from him. That was pretty meaningful. But I think it's good. I think I don't know if this is like an extrovert introvert thing, but I feel more extrovert, and I feel like I'm willing to accept some rejection of those things because of the benefits of connecting with some people. I mean, even those two stories to me are just such a meaningful part of my experience. And I don't think they would have come had I not cold call. Yeah.
So I am not an extrovert, I am an introvert. And so for me, sometimes I think like, well, that person is too busy, or I don't even think like to reach out to somebody. So I guess, what do you recommend in terms of being an introvert and not an extrovert and just cold calling? And like, do you have ongoing relationships with them, or is this just a send out, chat a little bit, kind of, are they ongoing?
I think for me, technically ongoing, meaning I feel like I could continue the correspondence, but I think usually it's contextual to a project, and I'm very mindful of their time. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I think it's like, I feel like I view the world that if someone, I mean, I feel like once you get your PhD something, it's being like very knowledgeable about one small like dandelion leaf on that, and your office, you're waiting for someone to come talk to you about it. Like, you know, imagine if someone emailed you about your topic and they were very interested to connect with you. I mean, I just feel like for me, my door would be open to that kind of conversation if you found someone that was really passionate about it. Go for it,
I feel
Mary.
like I have something to add there. So I remember when I was writing my dissertation, I needed to be able to do like a mediation and a path analysis with a categorical variable as the mediator, and such a thing didn't really exist as far as I could tell. Like within SPSS, I might be wrong, but I dug into the literature and I found some specialists named Dawn Yakabuchi, like up in the Northeast. She had created her own Excel sheet with this formula on it, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm gonna just email this woman and ask for help with this. She responded within 30 minutes and sent me her Excel file that actually had the formula embedded within it. So like, I mean, and she was so excited just to like share her stuff with me. And I think that's been my experience when I ask, like people are just excited to actually talk with somebody who's found their work. So it usually goes really well, I would say.
So just do it.
Just
Just
do it.
send the
Yeah,
email.
send the email.
Your stories make it sound like 100%. You're
Yeah,
100%.
let me give you a good one. So I did the experience what I would call like a clear example, like moment of like rejection with this, where someone emailed me back and they said something to the tune of like, I don't want to share more with you because it's like teaching someone to fish, that metaphor. I was like, oh, okay. Like, all right, then we will, you know, I have nothing to say if you feel like by you, you know, us connecting would make it feel like you're doing more for me than necessary. That was like a one-time conversation. So I share that because I don't, yeah, right, it's not 100%, but I feel like the gains are worth it, right? Like, I mean, isn't that kind of like, there's lots of things like that, like the fear of rejection is great, because like we said, you know, there's that feeling of, well, what if you email someone, they say I don't have enough time? Well, then they don't have enough time. Like, then I think I feel like the risk might be worth it. I don't know. I want to clarify that I feel very early in this process. I don't feel like I got it. I just feel like a couple times I've had awesome experiences.
And I think something that I've heard that kind of reframes that for me, like, oh, I wonder if this person has time, they probably don't, I know, is that really we're dealing with adults here, right? I should probably let them decide if they have enough time, not me decide ahead of time that they don't have time to interact with me. And I've had exactly the same experience. Like, I recall I needed some stimuli for an experiment. And so I emailed somebody who has now been a consultant on all of my grants that I've ever written since then, to ask her about it. And she sent me pages and pages of stimuli, like the work she had done, it probably saved me 100 hours that I totally would have spent doing things myself had she not been so excited to share. And I'm so glad I reached out with that one question, because it was the same thing. She was like, here's all my stuff. Please, I'm so glad somebody wants to use it.
And I think if you frame it that way also, that just by you extending that request, that's a pat on the back you're giving another colleague to say, what you've been doing matters and it resonates with me. So whether or not they're too busy to do it, that is still a meaningful exchange that you yourself have offered to another colleague. So most will probably be positive, and maybe that other person got up on the wrong side of the bed that morning or something,
Or, yeah,
or was feeling stressed, or but yeah, I think most of us would be thrilled if somebody reached out, right, and would do whatever we could to help facilitate.
And I think it helps you figure out who you want as collaborators. Like, I don't want somebody who's a collaborator who has the attitude like, I'm not going to help you with that. You have to learn to do it yourself. That's not terribly collaborative. And so, yeah, sometimes it just, you get the information that you need about, oh, this is somebody I would maybe work with in the future. No, that's probably not the right fit for me.
I think it's helpful. I think one of the events you're gonna do is like these topics to see who is doing, because we're in the Miller Speech and Hearing Clinic on the other side of the campus. So we often don't get a lot of interaction and what everybody's doing. So I think a way to like, who else is doing qualitative? I didn't even realize you had a qualitative collaborative. I don't do qualitative, but it would be interesting to listen and learn a little bit about it, to maybe incorporate it in the research that I do. So I think just having forums where we talk about just within our college similarities, and even I think for me, being an introvert, reaching out to somebody in my college is a little less intimidating than emailing somebody on a paper that I've read. So it might help to get to that point.
One of our first qualitative collaborative meetings as like a byproduct. I just remember one of the focus was on the methodology, but like once we had everyone talking, it became a very empathetic conversation about facing the subjectivity that's involved with qualitative research, and everyone feeling, okay, we're all, like this can be a challenge. And I thought that was a real like moment of breathing oxygen. We're like, that's just part of this, right? Is being able to not only just talk about the actual methodology, but your own personal process with it. I love that.
And it's the support group aspect.
It's part of
Because not
that, isn't it? Yeah.
everyone appreciates it. Yeah. And then we've benefited, like even in that group, with different members of the group, like Lizette. Salah, I can't ever say her name right. She has been funded by nursing to go to a qualitative symposium that happens every year at UNC. It used to be nursing, now it's interdisciplinary. Then she comes back and shares with us and gives us names of key people. And so again, several of us latched on, to some of those. And so, yeah, I think this, again, sharing the wealth kind of thing. I think mentorship can happen in those ways, just in our small communities that we have here within Harris College. And it doesn't always have to be external kinds of things.
Well, and in fact, to bring up, like, do you experience or do we have enough venues for peer mentorship? Because it doesn't necessarily follow that a mentor is somebody who is more advanced in their career from you, right? Like, I'm thinking, I see you nodding, Danielle, like you've taught me some things about how to operate, like with syntax, and reading your papers has been helpful. And so I think, yeah, sometimes there's like that peer-to-peer mentorship, as long as you bring up opportunities to discuss research.
And I think that hierarchy that we sometimes think about in academia, that really isn't relevant in many ways when you talk about those kind of things, because we all bring valuable expertise that we all can learn from, regardless of what our titles or our rankings or any of those things are.
Yeah, I know. I'll take that maybe quiet space to say that we've reached the end of some of our discussion of mentorship. If you have particular mentorship needs that you see in Harris College that you'd like to bring to the research committee, feel free to email us. We're not going to, I think, like develop a million new programs and nobody wants to go to, 50 new more meetings. But we are trying to keep our actions directed such that they're as useful as they can be as we develop these mentorship maps. So yeah, if you see a need, let us know and we'll see what we can do to maybe get something going. And our next, I did not put a slide up here. I will email out about it though. Our next faculty research symposium will be that panel on single case design research. So if you are at all interested in any kind of intervention research, this is a lovely lesser known design that it's not case studies. Single case work is different than a case study. And yeah, I highly recommend that you attend if you can.
And before that, we're gonna have the lunch and learn
And before that, we have the lunch and learn.
about that on September 29th. And
Yes.
you ruined my pop quiz question. I was gonna.
Oh, man. Okay, well, anybody who is here knows the answer.
I was if anyone's interested in joining the Qualitative Collaborative, very low level commitment, you're just included in the hub for more information, so you can email me or our listserv.
Can you come as just like a watcher? I feel like I would love to
We only
just
have
watch
one
the
meeting per
emails.
semester, and not everyone can attend, but I think it's more just being included for the, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I can
Yes.
just watch, because I'd love to learn more.
Lurkers
Yeah.
encouraged.
Okay.
We have like a thing, not only those who are doing, but also appreciators, and yeah.
Yeah.
We operationalized it very well for, yeah.
All right, thanks, everybody. And if you'd like, those of you who are here, or if you're nearby and online, with the extra food in the back, you're welcome to pack some up to go. All right, thanks all.
Thank you.
Where do I find TCU's faculty diversity zone? On the research site?
Yes, TCU research website.